Hello, Cthulhu lovers. I'm just trying out this first video blog, as I promised I'd do a couple of weeks ago, to basically share with you how the work's going on in the development of the new piece that I'm attempting to bring to you later this year, 2016. Not sure where I'm coming to yet. That all depends on what responses I get back from venues. I know I'm going to one at the moment, but I shan't say where yet. It just depends on where else I can go to. So I'll do my very best to come to the venues I've been to before, fingers crossed, and hopefully some new ones too as well. But if you guys could spread the word for me, that would be great. But I'll leave it at that. Don't want to harp on. But anyway, to the new project. Those of you who followed the odd comment I make now and again, I'm not a massive social media user, will know that I was looking into doing a show based on a true story, The Mechanical Turk, which is nothing to do with Lovecraft at all, but it's a story that I've had in my head for years and years and years. So I've been doing some research on that earlier in the year. Not going to do that this time around. One thing that came out due to that period of research that I put in was that the show that I originally envisaged for that project is going to be something a bit different. So I'm putting that back on the shelf for now, but I'll come back to it at a later stage. It needs more work, basically. But anyway, so the new Lovecraft project, which I'm definitely going to run with, even if I only get one venue, I've just decided this is the sort of thing that that's important for me to do, and I'm just going to do it, whatever happens. So I'm definitely coming out and doing this show from October this year. It won't be until the end of the latter end of the year. It takes about 9 months to make this sort of thing. Anyway, the piece I'm going to make, whatever happens, is Polaris. Polaris. It's a story which was written originally, I believe, in 1918, published in 1920, by Lovecraft. And basically, I won't go into too much detail, but in a very small nutshell, it's about a fella from 1918, 1920, who lives in a swamp in Louisiana. Maybe he's run into LaGrasse, I don't know. He lives in a swamp in Louisiana, and he's an insomniac. He can't sleep unless there's a night where there's no stars in the sky. He can sleep then. But on every other night, he can't sleep, especially when he sees the pole star, Polaris. And this particular star has a special attraction for him. Somehow it seems to speak to him, although it doesn't really speak, but he seems to have some sort of affinity with it. It's almost like there was a message that the star wanted to tell him, but has long since forgotten what that message was. It's kind of ambiguous. Anyway, he's sort of hypnotized a bit by this star, and there's also a mist, a rolling mist, and a great aurora of light, a bit like the northern lights that we see in this swamp. So it's kind of interesting things going on. There's lots to work from. It reminds me of that bit in the Day of the Triffids, when there's a meteor storm where all the Triffids come down. But it's not. It's a different kind of phenomenon, but it has that same impact to me anyway. But eventually he goes to sleep on the nights when he can, and he starts to dream. He starts to dream and have these vivid dreams of this strange city in an unknown place, but which the pole star burns brightly, and the days last for, or the daylight, lasts for months on end. and then the long nights. And he dreams of this city over and over again when he can sleep. And every time it becomes more vivid, more visceral, more lucid, until he starts to see the people coming out of the houses. It's a strange sort of place made of great marble, with pillars everywhere, this city, wonderful civilization. And at the top of these pillars there are images of graven men with long beards, hence the beard. I'm thinking of growing this. I may change my mind, but for the moment I'm going Viking. So there's this grand city, and he becomes more and more obsessed with it, up to the point where when he's in his waking moments, he finds it increasingly more and more difficult to distinguish between one reality and the next. He has these sort of quasi-philosophical discussions with himself to say, well, how can one reality be more valid than the next? Anyway, this goes on for some time until one day the dreams become so vivid that instead of merely observing what the people in the city are doing, and in their strange language and all this kind of thing, suddenly he's corporeal. He becomes corporeal within that city structure, and all of a sudden he's a personality in that city. People know him, he knows them. He now knows where he is. He's in the city of Olatho, which is on the plateau of Sarkis between two great mountain ranges. One is called Norton or Noton, and the other one is called Cardiophonac. And it's in the land of Lomar, where the star shines brightly, and it's constant day for a long, long time. And it becomes apparent that there's something going on in Olatho. There's an invader, a group of people called the Inutos. So the city's under imminent threat, and all the strong soldiers have gone off to man the barricades and to go to fight the fight. And this chap, our hero, as it were, he admits that he's quite a weak sort of chap in terms of stature, that he's prone to fainting fits, so he can't go along and fight. But he has got a keen sense of sight, and he's also a student of an ancient magical tome called the Narcotic texts. I'll have to work on how one expresses that. But the narcotic texts. So he studies these things. But because of his keen eyesight, he is given the great job of going to a watchtower. It's called the Watchtower of Thapnan, on a kind of what's the word? A military outpost. Can't think of the word. Anyway, a military outpost to look out for the enemy, the Inutos, if they come and try to surprise the city from a different direction. So off he goes, and if he sees the enemy approaching, he's to give the signal of fire, whatever that may mean. Okay, so off he goes, mounts the watchtower, goes up to the top to look out this great job he's been entrusted with, and he sees in the sky, what does he see but the star Polaris, again looking down at him. And again, he becomes transfixed by this star Polaris, almost hypnotized. And suddenly he hears the message that the star had to say to him, which was basically it's a rhyme that the star gives. But it's basically, in a nutshell, it says to him quite malevolently, "You're going to go to sleep now. I'm going to send you to sleep now, and you're going to forget everything, and you're not going to remember anything until I come round again in my orbit, and that's going to take me 26,000 years." And so he falls asleep, and when he wakes up again, he's back in the swamp. He's back in the swamp in Louisiana, but this time he's not as the person he was. He's still the mind and the personality of the person in the city of Olatho, and he's desperate to get back because he's been given this job to do, and all the people around him, people that he calls now dream creatures, because it seems like he's not in a reality but in a dream, they don't believe him. They shun him, and he can't get back, and so he kind of goes mad, and that's basically what it's about. Now, Polaris is a very short story. I mean, it's only about, I don't know, it's about maybe 4 pages long. It's tiny. And I've got to make a show at least an hour long. Usually my shows are around about an hour, hour 10. This one I'm going to try and do for an hour and a quarter, I hope. Maybe longer, I don't know. At least an hour and an hour 10, hour and a quarter. But it's interesting because, and I have become slightly obsessed with this, and I've got to sort of pull back on the throttle a bit now, because I can see the research that I'm doing basically is taking me down a massive rabbit hole. And so it's interesting that this 4-page story, let's say, short story, is generating such massive amounts of research now, to the point where I've got a massive backstory that I've elaborated on the original 4 pages. Because why? Because as a reader, as a writer, as an actor as well, you ask questions. You want to know given circumstances, you want to know backstory. So one question leads to the next, and you follow the rabbit hole down in that way. Even if you don't use all of the things, you have it, and then you can edit out. It's always, it's the same when you're acting. You can always give 100, 150% of something, and then the director can say, wind that down a bit. That's too much. But you've got to put in before you can take down. So there we go. But this has taken me. Look at this. I've got so much research here that I've done. I've got books. I've got this is in the last 3 weeks. I've got notes on Lovecraftian gods here, because I'm trying to sort of bring in lots of different things into this story. So this is sort of like it's part of the Cthulhu mythos, but also I guess you'd call it cosmic horror. Although it's not. I don't think it's a horror story as such. It's science fiction, really. And I've got all sorts of notes here that I've been looking at. And the first bit of research I did, or one of the first bits, is to write what I call a Sabbaton POLARIS Bible. It's up there, it's reversed. Anyway, and a Bible, a writing Bible, is something that you would use to work. It's like a plan, but a source material document that you can draw from at later stages. I won't start to write this for a little bit. So everything's on the table at this stage. But in this Bible, this Sabbaton POLARIS Bible, remember, and I'm calling it that not for egotistical reasons, purely and simply to distinguish it from the original Lovecraft story, because I'm going to elaborate on it, like I've done with all the other shows, to take this story as further down this particular, I'll put Lovecraftian rabbit hole, because I like to stay with Lovecraft and hopefully work on him and around him, if that makes sense. I want to get a distilled, concentrated experience that really pushes the work and me to its nth degree. So I've started off with what I know. You always start off with what do we know about the story, the events that happen, the people there, the characters, if you like, the places, the environment, all of these things. And so I've talked about the swamp. There's descriptions here: the house in the swamp, the chamber that he sits in, the window, the trees. They're described here, and I write down in the story they're described as vapor-soaked trees. What a great expression! Love that. The stars. There's various details of stars, the moon, the wind. All of these things are characters for me to build on, and that actually will make more sense later on, I think, because they can all be connected. The great aurora, like I was telling you about the Northern Lights. The man, he's not our hero, if you like. He doesn't have a name. Maybe I should give him a name. I don't know. Maybe not. Polaris itself, Olatho, the city. All of the details that are in the story I've condensed into a few paragraphs, so I can go there and I can pick out the detail. Blah, blah, blah. And it goes on. The other thing, and also other ideas that are generated from that, reference points. Like, for example, one reference point is the narcotic texts or manuscripts in the story. Now, so I say, well, what's that? That's interesting. Maybe I always come to these things not from the perspective of a Lovecraft scholar, because I'm not a Lovecraft scholar. So I'm coming into these things from a point of innocence, if you like, which is interesting because I'm not tainted. So I go away and I research it and find out what these are. So what are the narcotic manuscripts? And so I look that up and I discover that they come from prehistoric time, before man, first written, or the first 5 chapters written by another Lovecraftian entity called the Great Race of Yith, which is incredibly interesting. And I won't go into all the other stuff that I've done, but all of this type of thing has led me down a path of chronology, to build a much bigger chronology for the events in Polaris and those that perhaps arguably support it. And instances and entities like the Great Race of Yith, the Gnostic manuscripts, which will, I guess, feature greatly, and prehistoric civilization, building up to the evolution of Homo sapien, this kind of thing, connected legends perhaps of Atlantis and Lemuria, ideas of the gods that I talked about, the Lovecraftian gods, and perhaps even other references to modern thought on religion and so forth. Who knows? All of these kind of things. The establishment of Zobna is another location. Where did the Zobnarians come from? So many things here. I've gone beyond the current ice age. The earliest point that I've gone back to is this is Sabbaton's theorized timeline, which is changing every day. I go back to circa 1 billion years BCE, which is the arrival of the Elder Things, yet another Lovecraftian alien race, when they first arrive on Earth. And all sorts of interesting things, what were the continents like there? How did one thing get from A to B? It's kind of interesting, but it's sort of, how far do you go? And I got to that point. So anyway, I need to finish this, but I'm asking questions all the time. Why is this happening? Why is Polaris doing this to this poor old man? What are the motivations there? Why should it do that? Is it Polaris doing it? Is it something else? Does it need a motivation? Is it just a pure act of malevolence? It's easy to do that, because it was magic like that. But I want to at least ask the question at this stage, are there any other considerations that we should think about? And I'm also thinking at this time of how to stage the thing. I don't know yet, is the honest answer. Finance comes into it, but I'm not going to let that, divert me. I've got various ideas for staging, different ideas. Don't know which one I'm going to choose yet, but it depends on how everything links together here. But the more I look at this, the more epic it seems to go. So who knows? I don't know. I know it's going to have the same sort of Sabbaton-esque, if I can call it that, music and sound. I'm pressing my keyboard here at the moment. So I'm going to work on that. That doesn't come till later, but it's going to be a challenge anyway. I had a bit of time off last year to sort of reassess everything, and I come to the conclusion, no point in worrying about stuff about where one thinks one should be in life. Just go ahead and do what makes you happy, and this kind of thing makes me happy, and hopefully it'll make you guys happy too. So and thought-provoking, interesting, these kind of theatrical lives, the amount of energy one invests into something that doesn't exist. But that's where I live, on those sort of planes of non-existence, really. And why not? So there we go. Polaris. We shall see where it leads us. I'm going to work in this manner for another week to the around about the 5th of February. Okay. And then I'm going to try again to get in touch with venues on a larger scale. At the moment, I've just got in touch with venues I've been to before. I need to follow that up. and start thinking about marketing publicity so I can give something on websites, that kind of thing. So I'm going to start building on that in February alongside this. If any of you have any suggestions or just want to comment, you know, I'd really would appreciate any feedback, really. It'd be great to hear from you, what you want to see in the future, you know. Always lots of ideas, and the usual restrictions and challenges. I won't bore you with them, but please do give me lots of comments, share with your friends, you know. I'm totally independent in all pretty much all you know, parts of the bush world. I'm an independent operator. Hey man, independent. I don't know what that means, which is good. It's creative, but has its own challenges. So anything you can do to help promote me and the work, it's all about the work, really. Please do tell your mates and elder gods, and we'll see how we go. Was there anything else? Oh yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to Steve Dempsey, who gave me a tweet when I was asking if anybody knew about Zobner or something, and he recommended this wonderful book, which is, it's all in reverse, so you won't probably want everybody to see it, unless this software magically does something when I stop. It's called the Cthulhu Mythos Encyclopedia by Daniel Harms, and it's really interesting. I bought this on Steve's recommendation. It's excellent, I think. Of course, I bought it after I'd done, you know, 60% of all this research, but it has helped me, you know, to supplement that, and from now on it's going to be pretty good. Anyway, I shall shut up now, but do comment, leave your comments, and tell your mates, and I'll try and do these little blogs if people like them. I'll put them on Facebook, maybe on YouTube as well, who knows. But till next time, Fatakan. So be it.